G'day and welcome to my latest gun repair video. Now what we're doing today is we're looking at butt plate screw holes, how to repair them or even move them if necessary. Now you might sort of think, well, how do you move a hole? If you think about it, this is my little Winchester Model 12. When I got it, I had a broken butt plate. Now I've got another butt plate for it. It's a Repro, it's got Remington on it, I'll show it to you in a minute. But when I look at the holes, actually if you look at these holes, can you see that, especially this bottom one, it's not actually completely straight in the butt. Now, probably what happens at the factory, way back in the 20s when this was made, is they probably have an oversized butt plate. The stock's not finished, they just stick it on, drill a couple of holes, screw it in, and they then finish the stock and the butt plate together. So it doesn't really matter where the hole is. But now my butt plate that I've got, actually I'll show it to you and I'll show you what the problem is. So here's the butt plate here. As I said, it's a Repro. I got it from, I don't know if you can actually see that in the light. There we go. I got it from Brownell, so it's actually quite a nice, it's obviously a Repro of some sort of Remington. It's got Remington UMC, which is an old Union metallic cartridge. That was Remington's cartridge division back in the 20s and 30s and sort of pre-World War II. So this is obviously a copy of a butt plate off some sort of old Remington, but it's a modern Repro plastic. But it's actually advertised as being for the Model 12, even though it's maybe some of the Model 12s have these. But anyway, if you put that on there, it's actually a pretty good fit. It's just slightly oversized in a couple of dimensions, which is fine, mainly top and bottom. Up the top and the bottom, the sides are pretty good. But the problem is, if you look at that, I don't know if you can see that, especially that bottom hole, you probably can't see it, but if I look down in there, the hole's about a quarter of the hole out. Which means if I just put a screw in and screw it up, the butt plate's going to be sticking off to one side, and I can't fix that because it'll be hanging over one side and not enough on the other side. Now the other reason you might need to move a hole is sometimes, especially with steel butt plates, because over the years people oil them so they don't go rusty, and the oil seeps down the side of the screw into the screw hole and it rots the wood, and so often, you know, the butt plates will come a bit loose and you go to tighten them up. I've had this on Model 92 Winchesters, I've also had it on my Martini Cadet. You go to screw them up and then the screw's just loose because it's chewed up all the wood in the hole because it's all rotten. So to fix it you need to drill the hole out and re-drill it. Now the way to do that, so when we want to re-drill a hole or move a hole, what we need is to get some wooden dowels. Now you can use, I have used just pine, like 6mm pine dowel, and just chopped a little bit off and shoved it in. And that works, there's nothing wrong with doing that, although it is preferable to use hardwood because it's just going to be a lot tougher as far as doing up the screws tight. So you can buy hardwood dowels from the hardware store. You probably buy a packet of 50 or 100. They generally have little grooves down the sides and designed to hold the glue, and they're slightly oversized, so you put a bit of glue and you tap them in and they'll glue quite tightly. What I tend to do now though is I actually just use a plug cutter and cut a piece of hardwood and just make some little hardwood dowels and then shove them in place. So, so that's what we're going to do. So undo that. Just makes it a lot easier to deal with because really to drill your holes nice and straight, you really want to be putting this in the vise, so just makes it easier to, you have to be careful drilling wood. I mean, there is the temptation just to hold it and just go like that, but the bit can tend to bite, especially going into a pre-existing hole, can bite, can go crooked, you know. It's just much better to hold the work really tightly so that you can just be touching it and just very carefully put your drill bit in. So there we go. Doesn't look like much, but it's cut a nice little hardwood plugs, burn on the end, and might need to dress a little bit, but you know, we've got about a 20mm round hardwood walnut plug, so that'll be ideal. So I'll just cut another one of those. That's better. That one's still stuck in there, so it makes it a bit easy. Certainly produced some smoke, doesn't it? They're just pretty crap quality, not very sharp plug cutters, I think. But you know, like I said, they're so cheap. But if you just want them for little jobs like this, but the alternative is just to buy a packet of plugs. So anyway, there's our two plugs. So now what we got to do is we will go inside. I'll just file those off so that they're nice and smooth, and then it's just a matter of we'll just measure them. They're probably 6mm, I'd say, by the looks of them. Measure them, get the appropriate size drill bit, drill those holes out, and then we'll glue them in place. Alright, so here we've got our little dowels, one of them that we've cut. You can see the end's a bit kind of, but that's alright actually. I was going to trim that, but I think I'll just put it into the rifle that way. That bit can be sticking out, because you always have a little bit sticking out to trim off so you can get it nice and flat. So we'll have a look at that. Any glasses for any caliper these days? That's actually 7mm. It's a strange size, but anyway, that's what that little thing was. So what I'll do now is I'll go and find a 7mm drill bit. Alright, so I've found a 7mm drill bit. Here we go. So we've now got the stock in the vise. So now I'm going to just very carefully run this drill bit in. Notice how that was kind of tending to pull in. So there's that one. Alright, so there we go. It was difficult holding things in the padded vise. You've got to be careful not to damage them and do it too tight, but you've got to have them held. So now what I'll go do now is I'll get those plugs and a little bit of wood glue. Alright, so what we'll do first is we'll just check the fit of these. So using the good end, see one end's a bit mangled, but the good end, and that's actually starting in that hole. So I think what we can do is put some wood glue on this, give it a good old swirl it around, put it there. Now I just need a rag. I should have got that ready first, and just a small hammer. So you hear that? That's actually gone into the bottom of that hole there. So we'll get the other one. Check that that goes in. Yep, that goes in alright. So we'll just this is just PVA wood glue. You can probably use it just about any glue you wanted to, you know. So it's not as if there's a huge amount of, you know, you got a lot of surface area and not a huge amount of stress on it. There, just wipe my finger. Again, you heard that bottom out in the hole. Now we'll just, would have helped if I had a cleaner rag, but not to worry. I will get a clean rag, I don't want to get grease all over that. There we go, there's a nice new one. we go. Put that away. Alright, so I'm going to leave this for probably an hour or something like that for the glue to harden. Alright, so we're ready to just take these off. Now I've got a bit of camber angle. I'm sorry, I didn't realise that when I was putting those plugs in that the camera angle was as bad as it was. But anyway, so you can see it now. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to use a little coping saw. I want to make sure we don't kind of scrape the edges of this, so we're kind of just going to put it there, and I'll tend to cut kind of upwards. So just be careful. So there we go. Do this one. So you notice I've got the blade so that the blade's actually pointing away from, slightly angled upwards, so it's not tending to dig down into the stock. It means that it's coming up and leaving a corner here and here, but that's alright. So now we need a nice sharp chisel, only a fairly small one. So we're just gonna carefully take this off, because we want to just get it, ideally we want to get it so it's just exactly the same level as the wood. So we're basically bringing it back to the state that was in, the stock was in before the first butt plate screw hole was ever drilled at the factory. Okay, getting close. Just when you're doing this sort of thing, always use your sense of touch to just see where you are. That's getting pretty close. I'm going to feel there's just a high bit just on the edge there. Right, that'll do for that one. Sometimes you might need to change your angle a bit. Of course, this is going to be hidden under the butt plate, but it's always nice to do things as carefully as possible. So that's pretty flush. There's just a high bit over this side. Back over here, there's a bit of a lump of glue there. So I've got the glue as well as the wood. Righto, so we'll just put the end back on that. Right, I'm just going to go get a piece of sandpaper and we'll just sand that lightly. basically back into a an undrilled new stock like it was in the factory. So when we go to drill the holes, even if it ends up that the hole is right on the border of the old hole and the timber, which obviously before it just wouldn't have worked, it doesn't matter, it'll just halfway drill through the plug and the timber. Alright, so let's get that onto there. Now what I'm going to do is I want to make sure that I overhang at the end here, at the top end and at the bottom end, so that I've got room to file them back. So I want to just make sure there's nowhere where it's not overhanging. It's almost flush on the sides, it's just overhanging a slight little bit, but that's alright. So I'm just doing it all by feel. Have a feel. So that's pretty well perfect there. Now I've got a pencil here, which where are we here? There we go. Which I sharpened, went down and used my son's pencil sharpener. Okay, just double check. I can see where I've marked those holes through there. Actually, now that I look at this, I'd moved a little bit at the end. So I'm just going to redo this one here. Nice and round. This one, it's a bit hard to keep that butt plate in place. I'm just going to get a light so I can shine it down in that hole. That's not too bad, I think. Righto, so you can sort of see, if you look at where the space where the holes are, you can see that like the original holes would have been right in the center of those plugs. So both of these holes were just on the edge of the original holes. There's just no way we could actually properly fit this butt plate without plugging those holes. Now, the next thing to do is actually drill these holes and get them centered, which is a bit tricky in its own right. Right, I'm just using a small drill bit to mark the center. So I find it's easier to do this just with a bit. Once you've got it in the drill, because it's hard to you know, manipulate the drill with a tiny little bit, get it right in the right spot. So I tend to just do this. Alright, so there's that one there. Now this one here, see, this is kind of right on the edge of the plug. So just move it around. It's pretty much in the center of the circle, which is just there. And then it's a bit of an optical illusion, this one, because you've got that center of the circle and then this edge of the hole. Now, see, I'm not really happy with that because that hole is not centered. Despite my best efforts. There we go, I've moved that hole over, so it's pretty well centered now. Just took a bit of mucking around. We'll get the screws and decide what size holes we're gonna cut and drill in this. I just want to get that 1/16, it's a little hole. Alright, so there's the original Remington butt plate screw. Now I'll just reach over here. That one's a bit small, so you need to hold your drill bit up against the screw, the actual shaft of it, and it should be such that it actually covers the shaft of the screw so it's completely hidden, but you can just still see the tips of the, if you can see that, you can still see the tips of the, where's the camera, over there, of the threads just poking out the sides. Righto, so there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of grease. Got a bit of bullet lubricant here from my bullet casting setup just across the way there. So I'm just going to put a bit of bullet lube on these screws. Like so. So I haven't actually got that exactly where I want it, because we've actually got the wood is just slightly proud on this side and the butt plate slightly proud on that side, but I don't really mind that because the wood on this side, if you can see that there, the wood's just slightly proud by just a whisker. That's pretty much perfect, so I can probably leave that side of the butt plate normal. I can take the tip off there, and then I'll just have to take a little bit off around this side. Really think about the fact that these screws are a completely larger size, but anyway, I'll sort that out. So I've just taken this butt plate off again just to try to work out what I'm going to do about the screws. So the original Remington screw is much too big. You see these have actually got quite small holes in them. I don't think I'm going to be able to make the hole bigger because I think it'll just look, it won't look very good if I drill that hole out, because you can see the butt plate's quite narrow. I think my best bet is going to be to just turn the head of the screw to the correct shape to get it to fit in there. So I've got one of the screws and I've turned the head down, diameter down, till it's within the diameter of that hole in the butt plate. So as you can see, it still sort of protrudes. Now if we just unscrew that, which I'll try to do now, if you look at this, Yeah, where's the camera? There we go. If you look at this, you'll see that there's actually quite a steep from that head down to the bit of the shaft before the thread starts. There's quite a steep angle. So whereas if we look at the butt plate, you can see it's probably around 45, I think, between the edge and where the shaft goes down. So what we've got to do is we can put that on the lathe, we can turn the headstock around to 45 degrees, and then we can cut, just making sure we don't reduce the diameter of the end there. We can actually cut a 45 between that shoulder and the corner, and that screw should then fit well, I think. Alright, so there's one of the original butt plates that came with the original Remington butt plate. As you can see, it's a fairly tight fit in that hole. I've already actually drilled these holes out a little bit, but I don't want to do it too much. As you can see, it doesn't really fit that very well. Alright, now here's the other screw. So it started out the same size, but I've reduced the diameter of the head. I've cut the head at a 30-degree angle, and I've just made that shoulder just a little bit thinner so it slides in the hole better. And as you can see, that's a pretty well a perfect fit now. I've finished this butt plate. Well, I haven't actually finished it. I've actually finished the most tedious part, which is shaping it to the shape of the butt. Now I've just sat there taking it on and off about 100 times just with a file, and I've attempted to do two things. One is I'll give you a close-up view in a minute, but one is to take the edges off the butt plate so that you've just got a touch, maybe 1/32 or less inch of wood sticking out beyond the butt plate, because that's the way that guns were made in the old days. So going right around, so you can feel that, so it's aiming to get it sort of the same all the way around. And then the other thing too is, if you look at it on the side, the stock comes up on an angle, so you don't want, even if it goes like this, you don't want the butt plate to be going up on a separate angle. You want the lines to follow, so that means the butt plate has a slight angulation, especially on the sides where it's most noticeable, and on the edges it has a slight angulation. So you just try to carefully get it to follow those curves. Now, the plastic this butt plate is made of it's a weird sort of plastic. It's really quite almost like chalky. It's very soft, and it's probably made that way so you can be shaped. I don't know how it would go in the wear department as far as wearing. That's the other thing. So a few times I kind of slipped and came onto the front of the highly polished part, and you can see there's a few little scratches, but I'm not going to worry about that, because this is actually, I use this rifle. I use it at the range a lot. You know, it sits on concrete, on gun racks. So yeah, the butt plate's going to get scuffed anyway, so I'm not going to worry about that. It's just basically to make it complete and to look kind of okay. I'll just go to the table and I'll see if we can just show you a close-up of the final result. That's, as I said, that's before I've polished the edges. I'll do that next. Alright, so here's the butt. So hopefully this camera will focus alright. So if you look at this, I don't know how you can see, but if I put my fingernail, there's a definite slight protuberance of the wood all the way around there, only just slight. You can hardly even see it, but you can feel it. So we've got that all the way around there. Now, as you can see, that we've got a rough finish there, so we're going to have to polish that with sandpaper. I'll probably start with 400, go 46812, and I should be able to get it nice and shiny around there. I'll take the butt plate off obviously to do that and just polish the edge. So there's the screws. I was reasonably happy with the screws. It wasn't perfect. This one at the top, when I drilled the hole in the stock, I tended to go about perpendicular with the actual edge of the stock, but really the butt plate's designed so that that screw should actually go in on a slight angle, so that's why it's not really sitting straight in the hole. You can see the head's tending to push, the point's pushing in that direction, but it's not really noticeable, and the butt plate's on quite nicely and it fits well, so I'm not going to worry about that. That's actually not too bad. You see that compared to further down. Really get the focus. I've finished the butt plate now, it's back on the rifle, so there we go. Screws look good, sides are pretty well polished. I mean, I didn't get them so that they were mirror smooth around, but as I said, this is a shooting rifle. I just wanted it to look okay, and obviously it looks pretty good, so I'm quite happy with that. There we go. So if you like this sort of thing, please consider subscribing and push like, and in the meantime I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.